Hello and good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Azlani Adani and you're watching Updates at Noon. Making the headlines today, National Agro-Commodity Policy to drive agro-commodity sector. Swiss researchers launch a trial for COVID-19 patch vaccine. The government has identified three main challenges that need to be worked on and given attention to based on the recent flood disaster management. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Semasa in Parliament today said they include the lack of understanding of the National Security Council's MKN directive, weaknesses in terms of order and control and information management while managing the disaster. The Premier said he is of the view that the understanding of all related agencies regarding MKN's directive needs to be improved. In terms of order and control, he said the absence of the National Disaster Management Agency in certain areas has caused difficulties for direct coordination with the agencies on the ground. The other challenge is that the country's disaster management also relies heavily on the dynamic and fast information delivery from the disaster site.
Pada masa ini, pengurusan bencana negara masih mengamalkan kaedah pengumpulan maklumat secara konvensional dan tidak seiring dengan perkembangan teknologi semasa.
Malaysia has completed its ratification process on the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership (RCEP) and has transmitted the country's instrument of ratification to the ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Semasa said the agreement will enter into force in Malaysia on 18th March this year. Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri is hopeful that United States businesses would take advantage of the vast investment opportunities presented by the mega trade agreement. He said this in his opening remarks in a meeting with the US-ASEAN Business Council, USABC, which was read by International Trade and Industry Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Azmin Ali. According to the Premier, the RCEP is one of the enablers to help Malaysia revitalize domestic and international business activity. He noted that the pandemic has made clear the importance of international trade and cooperation as well as the interlinkages of regional supply chains. He reaffirmed that Malaysia continues to be an open economy with pro-business and pragmatic policies that support the investment climate in the country. The RCEP negotiations were kick-started during the 21st ASEAN Summit in Cambodia in November 2012. It aims to create an integrated market with 16 countries, making it easier for products and services of each of these countries to be available across this region. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri said the National Agri-Commodity Policy (DAKN) 2021-2030 will drive the development of the agri-commodity sector in a more sustainable, competitive and market-oriented manner in line with new norms and increased digital technology use post-COVID-19. According to the Prime Minister, it will be launched by the Plantation Industries and Commodities Ministry to replace the National Commodity Policy (DKN) 2011-2020.
Dasar yang akan memayungi pembangunan agrokomoditi negara adalah penting agar sektor ini terus berdaya saing dan kekal terpelihara sepanjang jalan. Ini selaras dengan norma baru dan peningkatan penggunaan digital pasca COVID-19.
He further explained that DAKN 2021-2030 will be used as a reference for the country's commodity industry in terms of environment, social and governance, ESG, as well as towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals Agenda 2030. He said it will produce smart smallholders who practice modern agriculture through the use of technology. The Premier also has high hopes that the agro-commodity sector, a source of income for nearly 1 million smallholders, could help regenerate the economy and restore economic stability. In another development, the Prime Minister said road users must be given the option of using either the radio frequency identification, RFID system, touch and go or smart tag at toll gates. He said this was decided by the Cabinet, which was of the view that road users must be given a choice, just like how it was practiced when touch and go was introduced in its early years and cash payments were still allowed to continue.
Cadangan itu bagus, tetapi dari segi pengguna, mereka mesti diberikan option ataupun pilihan. Sama ada nak guna RFID ataupun nak guna touch and go dan ataupun smart tag. Yang pertama. Yang keduanya dari segi lorong tol tu. Jangan semua RFID lah. Kalau kita beri pilihan. Jadi kalau ada 10 lorong, mungkin beberapa lorong untuk RFID, the rest masih lagi untuk touch and go dan juga smart tag.
He added that RFID was a pioneer project and would need time to be fine-tuned. The system allows motorists to enjoy a smoother journey without having to stop, drive through the RFID lane at a speed of 30 kilometers per hour, as well as carry out contactless toll transactions. The RFID also offers digital cash security and cashless top-up through the use of touch and go e-wallet without having to go to the top-up counter. The government has obtained the consent of Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah to set up a Royal Commission of Inquiry (RCI) to investigate Lembaga Tabung Haji (TH) management and operational issues from 2014 to 2020. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Parliament and Law, Datuk Seri Dr. Wan Junaidi Tengku Jaafar, said the setting up of the RCI is in accordance with the Commission of Inquiry Act 1950, Act 119. In a statement, Datuk Seri Dr. Wan Junaidi said His Majesty has also consented to the appointment of 6 RCI members, including former Chief Justice Tun Muhammad Rao Sharif as its chairman. He explained that the RCI members are those with a caliber with vast expertise and experience in their respective fields, namely the judiciary, civil service, administration, economics, finance, investment, capital markets, banking, Islamic finance and accounting. According to the minister, those appointed have been ensured to be independent and do not have any direct links to TH. This is to ensure that the investigation can be conducted transparently and fairly and to avoid any issues involving conflict of interest with the relevant parties. The appointments will be effective from today to 19th July, and the Commission is given 6 months to carry out investigation and prepare a report to be presented to Al-Sultan Abdullah. Nearly 400 boarding school students in 4 states have tested positive for COVID-19 as of yesterday. The cases involve 4 schools in Kedah, 2 schools in Malacca and 1 school each in Kelantan and Kuala Lumpur. About 98 Maktab Mahmud students in Pendang, Kedah who tested positive for the virus have been placed at the Low-Risk COVID-19 Quarantine and Treatment Centre PKRC in Dewan Wawasan in Jitra, while some were receiving treatment at the hostel. 3 education clusters were also identified, namely Dah Jalan Merbau cluster involving 52 students of College Mara Kuala Nerang in Padang Terap, Dah Teluk Teduri cluster involving 39 MRSM Baling students, as well as Dah Jalan Pantai cluster involving 33 SMK Kuala Muda students. In Malacca, State Health and Anti-Drug Committee Chairman Dr. Muhammad Akmal Saleh said 2 COVID-19 clusters involving college students have emerged with 87 cases recorded. The first cluster was the Jalan Tontelani cluster at the Vocational College in Malacca Tengah with 76 cases. The college had been directed to cease operations until 21st January. Another cluster was the Jalan Komando Jasin cluster, which reported 11 cases at Datuk Sri Abu Zahar Isnin Vocational College. Over in Kota Baru, Kelantan, another 29 female students of Sekolah Menengah Kebangsaan Agama Naim Lil Banat tested positive for COVID-19, bringing the total figure to 73. Following this, State Health Director Dato Dr. Zaini Hussein said the department had declared the cases as the MB Teleport cluster. He said the cluster, which started in Kota Baru, has now spread to Jeli district. Meanwhile, a daily boarding school in Kuala Lumpur has been ordered to close for 7 days from 17th until 23rd January, following several COVID infections detected among its students. Now, foreign segment, super rich thrive as COVID-19 pushes millions into poverty. Swiss medical researchers are testing a new generation vaccine administered via an arm patch that they hope will provide a long-term immunity from COVID-19 and do away with the need for seasonal booster shots. The vaccine is administered via microneedles in the patch that are less than 1 millimeter deep, and the researchers believe it could be better than others at protecting against potential mutations in the virus. The researchers started vaccinating 26 healthy volunteers last week and plan to give them 2 doses each, a base dose and a slightly stronger one. Unlike conventional vaccine that stimulate antibody production, the new PEP-GNP COVID-19 vaccine focuses on T cells, which are responsible for cellular immunity, to eliminate cells infected by the virus and prevent it from replicating. Professor Blaise Ganton, head of the study, said the cellular immunity generates so-called memory cells, which could make the vaccine more durable. To administer the vaccine, the patch will be pressed against the skin briefly and then removed. The Phase 1 clinical study, led by Unisante in Lausanne in collaboration with the city's Scherf Hospital, has been mandated by Emergex Vaccine, the British company that developed the product. The study is the first in the world with the new vaccine and follows another also conducted in Lausanne and using the same technology against dengue. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said the country should no longer be last in line to access vaccines as he opened a new vaccine manufacturing facility in Cape Town on Wednesday. South African-American businessman Patrick Soon Shiong opened the vaccine plant intended to help his local Nantsa company make COVID-19 shots in future and address the continent's lack of manufacturing capacity. The coronavirus pandemic has exposed a global lack of access to life-saving vaccines, particularly in Africa, where just about 10% of the population has been fully vaccinated against COVID-19 compared to over half the world's population. Soon Shiong, who is also a medical doctor, will transfer technology and materials for RNA adjuvant vaccine platforms and cell therapy from his California-based Nant Works to scientists in South Africa, where they will also work on vaccine targeting cancer, TB and HIV. Another one of Soon Shiong's firm, Immunity Bio, is currently testing a novel coronavirus vaccine candidate in South Africa that looks at priming the body's soldier T cells to kill the coronavirus and prevent it replicating. The world's 10 wealthiest people more than doubled their fortunes to $1.5 trillion during the pandemic as poverty rates and health, social, gender and racial inequalities increased. According to a study released by Oxfam ahead of a high-profile World Economic Forum WEF event, billionaires have seen a record surge in their wealth during the pandemic, with the 10 richest people boasting their fortunes by $15,000 a second or $1.3 billion a day. Combined, the 10 richest people own more than world's poorest 3.1 billion people.
99% of humanity is being left behind. So as we've watched billionaire growth double at the rate of $15,000 per second, that's the same $80 less per second than a minimum wage worker makes in a year.
According to Oxfam's report, the pandemic has pushed an estimated 160 million people into poverty, and inequality is contributing to the death of at least 21,300 people each day, one person every 4 seconds. One key area of inequality has been the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. While just over 7% of people in low-income countries have received a vaccine dose, more than 75% have in high-income countries. The World Health Organization has advised its member states yesterday to lift or ease international traffic bans, although it still considers the COVID-19 pandemic a major concern. The WHO Emergency Committee presented a number of recommendations to WHO Director General, who decided that the COVID-19 pandemic continues to constitute a public health emergency of international concern. The committee said that a proof of vaccination against COVID-19 should not be used as the only pathway or condition permitting international travel, given limited global access to an inequitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccine. It also advised countries to conduct epidemiological investigation of SARS-CoV-2 transmission at the human-animal interface and targeted surveillance on potential animal hosts and reservoirs. The committee called for real-time monitoring and data sharing on SARS-CoV-2 infection, transmission and evolution in animals, noting it will assist the global understanding and timely identification of the virus and assessment of their public health risk. The first humanitarian flights are finally on the way to volcano and tsunami-stricken Tonga, 5 days after the dual disaster cut the Pacific nation off from the rest of the world. Officials in Australia and New Zealand confirmed that 2 military transport planes should arrive within hours at Tonga's main airport, which was only recently cleared of ash after painstaking effort. An Australian defence official said a C-17 Globemaster left from Amberley Airport based to Tonga today, while New Zealand confirmed that a C-130 Hercules was en route following days of delays. The flights will carry vital humanitarian supplies such as water and telecommunications equipment. News from Tonga has been severely limited since the weekend's disaster, which damaged undersea communications cables. On the ground, Tongans have scrambled to clear the runway at Fuamotu International Airport of a thick blanket of volcanic ash. 3 people were killed when the Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai volcano exploded on Saturday, triggering tsunami waves that ripped down homes and caused widespread flooding. Hundreds of heavily armed police occupied the Jacarzinho neighborhood of Rio de Janeiro on Wednesday, as authorities vowed a renewed effort to bring security and public services to slums dominated by gangs of drug dealers. Police drove armored personnel cars into the neighborhood, patrolling streets and entering homes in a 4-hour operation. Governor Claudio Castro declared it was the start of a new offensive to transform poor areas known as favelas. Rio's military police said there were no violent encounters in the operation that had started into favelas. A spokesperson said a large number of police forces deployed deterred any armed response from the gangs. Jacarzinho is a sprawling favela on the violent north side of Rio, Brazil's second largest city, where a police raid in May resulted in 29 deaths, including an officer, and drew sharp criticism from human rights groups. Police say they plan to occupy other nearby favelas, such as Manguinhos, Bandeira, and Conjunto Mora, Carioca. The 2018 election of President Jair Bolsonaro, who has called for more aggressive tackling of organized crime, ushered in a tougher era in Rio policing. Coming up in sports, Bergwijn's stoppage time double gives Spurs win at Leicester. The Olympic Council of Malaysia, or CM, are confident that Beijing will be able to stage a successful and safe Winter Olympics from 4th to 20th February amid concerns over the rising number of Omicron variant COVID-19 cases.
Your Excellency,
OCM President Tan Sri Muhammad Norzal Zakaria said the organisers had set strict standard operating procedures SOP and a games bubble known as closed loop to contain the spread of the pandemic. Speaking at a press conference after the ceremony to hand over the Jalur Gemilang to the Malaysian contingent chef de mission, Mora Tan Siu Si, Tan Sri Norzal said Beijing is the place all athletes want to go to and achieve their dream. Malaysia will be represented by two alpine skiers, Jeffrey Webb, 23, in men's slalom and Arwin Idami Salehuddin, 17, in women's slalom and giant slalom at the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics. Malaysia made their Winter Olympic debut at the 2018 Pyeongchang Games in South Korea, with figure skater Julian Yi, 24, finishing 25th in the men's singles, and Jeffrey ending up 68th in the men's giant slalom.
something special.
Defending champion Naomi Osaka overcame a second-set blip to beat American Madison Brangle 6-love, 6-4 and reached the third round of the Australian Open on Wednesday, staying on course for a potential fourth-round clash with world number 1 Ash Barty. Through to set in just 20 minutes. The 54th ranked Brangle 31 fought back in the second set, with Osaka saving 9 break points before a missed lob by the Japanese gave Brangle the break to lead 4-3. Osaka immediately turned on the power. In the last women's match of the day, Maria Sakkari defeated Zheng Qinwen 6-1, 6-4 to advance to a third-round encounter with Veronika Kudermetova, the number 28 seed from Russia. This is the fourth time in her 2020. In this occasion, however, the Chinese was repeatedly outmaneuvered by Sakkari, who won 71% of her first serve points and all 10 of her net approaches. After Zheng had battled through 5 deuces to hold in the opening game, Sakkari Roland got the win. She netted a backhand to squander her third match point, and the rejuvenated Zheng held a point to level at 5-5, but the teenager netted her forehand, and 2 points later, the relief Greek converted her fourth match point after an hour and a half on court when Zheng sent a backhand wide. In the men's singles, Alexander Zverev shrugged off a rowdy centre court crowd at the flood-lit Rod Laver Arena to sail into the third round of the Australian Open with an impressive 6-4, 6-4, 6-love win over local journeyman John Millman. As long as fans could be at stadiums in the post-pandemic era. Stephen Bergwijn scored twice in stoppage time as Tottenham fought back from 2-1 down to snatch an incredible victory at Leicester in a thrilling finish at the King Power Stadium early this morning. Harry Kane went close twice in the early stages, including a header against the bar in the 19th minute as Spurs aggressively sought an opener. But it was Leicester's Zambian forward, Patson Daka, standing in front of the injured Jamie Vardy, who put them ahead against the run of play in the 24th minute with a sliding left-footed finish at the back post after Sergio Reguilon had failed to clear. Leicester defender Mark Albrighton then did superbly to sprint back and clear a Pierre-Emile Højbjerg shot off the line as Spurs continued to attack. The visitors got the eventual reward when they drew level in the 38th minute with a clinical finish from Kane, who beat the offside trap, skipped inside a Gaglia Soyuncu and drilled a low shot in off the far post. It was a tighter affair after the break, but Leicester got in front in the 76th minute when substitute Harvey Barnes found James Maddison, whose low shot struck the outstretched leg of Jaffe Tanganga and flew in via the post. That looked to be enough until substitute Bergwijn leveled before sparking wild celebrations with the winner in the 7th minute of stoppage time. That concludes today's edition of Updates at Noon. In our top story, National Agro-Commodity Policy to drive agri-commodity sector. Tune in to News at 10 coming up at 10 p.m. on saluran Berita RTM on My Free Views channel 123. You can also stream the news by surfing RTM Click. Thank you, I'm Mazlan Yadani. Goodbye for now.